Hello and welcome to another trio of Dev Diaries for Imperator Rome. So today we're going to be going over 28, 29 and number 30. Number 30 came out on the 24th of December, so got a Christmas one. Anyway, let's just get right into it. In the period covered by Imperator, battles were in many ways fought quite differently from the periods we cover in our other games. Very true. The battle system of its predecessor, EU Rome, did have a unique touch to it with its unit types and their various strengths and weaknesses, but it was otherwise more similar to the battle system of the EU games. In Imperator, we've revamped combat in a number of ways to behave more like you would expect from the era. Good. Very good. While also giving you greater control over how battles are fought. Also very good. First, I'd like to refresh some things we've already gone through. Like in EU Rome, battles are fought in phases where a unit will attempt to damage the unit in front of it. If there is no unit immediately facing your unit, it can try and damage a unit diagonally adjacent to it. The maneuver rating of each unit type determines how far away it can target a unit on the opposite side. For an overview of unit phases, see this former Dev Diary. Now that former Dev Diary, that link, goes to the fourth Dev Diary for Imperator, which is the first video that I did for Imperator. And the reason I did the video is because I was unhappy or dissatisfied with what was shown. I thought it was a bit strange, and I didn't really like the way they'd shown the battle system. And I actually did a little mock-up of what I would have preferred to see as the system for battle. And I'm just going to play you a little bit of that because it's going to be quite pertinent in a bit. So, here we go. So, the first one, it's just the armies lined up. We've got the green team and we've got the red team. If you don't know these NATO symbols, basically the X is infantry, this diagonal line is cavalry, and then this line here is skirmishers. Basically what I'm proposing here is we have 3 lines, not just 2, as there are in, European Universalis 4. So yeah, I would love to see 3 lines. So, first phase of the combat would be... basically I think we should change it into 2 phases in combat. So like, you know how EU4 has shock and fire, but instead of it being, shock then fire, then shock then fire, then shock then fire, it would be skirmish for a little while, I don't know, a couple of days or something, maybe until morale breaks, or I don't know, some arbitrary period when that ends, and then we would move on to the combat phase, or skirmish, then combat. So this here is the skirmish phase. We've got the skirmishers fighting the skirmishers, the cavalry fighting the cavalry. Of course, if I'd made these armies slightly different compositions to one another, there'd be cavalry fighting skirmishers. And I would say that, maybe fire and shock can be a thing. So skirmishers in the fire phase would wreck cavalry, but as soon as the shock phase comes around, the cavalry would wreck the skirmishers. That could be a thing. So yeah, maybe fire and shock for both skirmish and combat phases? Maybe. That could actually be really cool. That's something I've just come up with now. So yes, the skirmish lines, including cavalry, would clash, and then the result of that would be, some die or run away on both sides. Green team came out ahead. Go Greens. Anyway, moving on. This would be the start of the combat phase, and basically what you see here, instead of these guys retreating to the second row, they would instead retreat to the flanks. And on the flanks, they would fight the remnants of the enemy's skirmishers. And once the enemy skirmishers are dead, in the 5th row here, we would see that the cavalry would swing around to the rear of the enemy infantry, and the skirmishers would fire into the flanks. Right, so that was my idea in the 4th Dev Diary for how combat would work. Let's go back to the Dev Diary in question. So, just keep what I just said in that old video in your mind. So, let's move on to the new stuff. Unlike its predecessor, there's no second row from where units can deal damage in Imperator Rome. Instead, there is a primary front line and a secondary front line. So when I was reading over this Dev Diary, I saw this. At first, there is no second row. And I was thinking, well, damn. I was suggesting 3 rows, and now there's not even a second row. But then I read on a bit. So instead, there is a primary front line and a secondary front line. The first front line will enter battle first, damaging the opposing side until its morale breaks or it suffers enough damage to be eliminated. The secondary front line will then begin to move forward and become the new front. Well, hang on a minute. That's kind of what I wanted, isn't it? On the sides, the units are designated as flank units, will be deployed. These will first fight and kill the opposing flank, then start targeting the center if they can, decided by their maneuver value as described above. In the army interface, you'll be able to select which unit type you want to be prioritized for first front line, second front line, and flank. These pre-selected choices will depend on your military traditions, but they can be changed freely by the player or the AI for each army. The size of the flank can also be set either 2 cohorts, 5 cohorts, or 10 cohorts. That's basically a unit. Sorry, 1 is a unit, 10 would be 10 units. Additionally, in some unit types are now scripted to be able to deal or take more morale damage or more physical damage, making them more or less suited for each role. In most cases, this means that you will first see a skirmish phase, where your primary front line of archers or light infantry try to do as much damage as possible to the other side before their morale breaks and they retreat. They are then followed by the units of the second line, potentially composed of heavier units such as heavy infantry and or elephants. And is this not... Obviously, it's not directly what I asked for. It's not exactly my suggestion, but holy shit, if it doesn't do what I wanted it to do, right? The essence of what I wanted was, I want a skirmish phase, then I want a combat phase. What are we getting? We're getting a skirmish phase followed by a combat phase. It's exactly what I asked for, without being exactly what I asked for. And yeah, that's really exciting for me. Now, I'm not saying in any way that my video influenced the game, right? I'm not saying that. As you saw, the video had only like 3,000 views. I did post my suggestion on the forum as well, but I don't believe I saw any of the developers comment on it or whatever, right? But having said that, that dev diary did have a lot of dislikes, and there were a lot of people commenting on it, saying what they would like to see, and maybe what I said was seen, maybe, who knows? I would like to think that I influenced it a little bit, but I'm not saying that. Other people can say that. You can say that. You should say that. Anyway, let's move on. Let's stop stroking my ego. In an ideal world, you might want to deploy something like horse archers on the flanks with high maneuver value that would allow them to deal damage far into the center once they have defeated the opposing flank, but you might also go for something specifically to prioritize countering the opposing flank. Since the choice is free and you can put any type of unit into each of these roles, if you're playing with a country with a specific bonus to certain unit types from our military traditions, that might change which unit you want to be in which position. If you just want to try something unexpected, that is also possible. When you do not have enough of your preferred unit type for a role, the game will fill out with units in order of how high their build costs are. Alright, so that's fair enough. Now, I'm not sure if the combat is, say you've got a line of skirmishers and then on the other side there is a line of skirmishers. If when F dies, say this is a unit F, if the next line will immediately go and join the rank of skirmishers with this heavy infantry, or if it waits until everything is dead or a certain percentage is dead before, you know, it's replaced with the second line. I'm not sure which. I'm assuming the first. I'm assuming just this will be replaced by your next line as soon as it's dead or you know, retreated. But yeah, I'm a lot happier with this system than the one that was originally shown to us. Apart from being strong against other unit types, some units also have modifiers to how much morale damage they can take or deal. Archers take 25 more damage, for instance, and heavy infantry deals more damage to unit strength of the opposing unit. Apart from being strong against other types of units, some units also have modifiers to how much morale damage they take. Okay, so it's all talking about morale damage. Okay, fair enough. Heavy infantry do more morale damage, archers take more morale damage. Gotcha. I think this is a good thing, right? So the archers, if you don't want them to be in combat against heavy infantry. So what happens is when you know, the heavy infantry get onto the front line, say the archers beat first line, the heavy infantry come in, you don't want the archers sticking around. So they will retreat faster because they take more morale damage and the heavy infantry will deal more morale damage. Now that's really good. That's a smart way of doing it. I just needed to read it a couple of times, get my head around it. Nice. Like in EU or Crusader Kings, Imperator will show an indicator on the map when a battle is expected to occur in a location where two armies are headed. In Imperator, we have added information to this indicator to give a quick overview of some of the more relevant combat data of the expected battle. So let's have a look right here. It's unclear which side will win. Our side shows exactly what units there are. That's good. The combat stats of the general is good. They have more morale. The terrain is to their benefit. Interesting. Okay, so he outnumbers him by one archer, and you have more. Your general is better. They have more morale, and the terrain, they have the advantage there. So that would be undecided. All right, I like it. That's actually really useful information. I imagine it's not going to be easy to read that in multiplayer because you've got. You can't pause, but if you can pause before you take a battle, and you just have a quick scan of what it says. I suppose in multiplayer, that's why it's got a color, so you can see there the crossed swords is a yellow. That'll be unclear. Then a green for I'm likely to win, and red for I'm likely to lose. So I suppose in multiplayer you can just go by the colors, but if you're actually able to pause, then reading what it says would be a good idea. Fair enough. Now, attrition, this one's interesting, right? So, constant factor in warfare in this era and up until this day is the non-combat related losses in a conflict. Very true. Armies moving through hostile territory or just areas unable to support them in general will often suffer as many, often more, than ones directly involved in combat. Yeah, I mean, you can just think of Hannibal crossing the Alps with his elephants. Wasn't it like very few of his elephants actually got through there, and then all but one died in the first battle. So, yeah, Hannibal crossing the Alps with his elephants wasn't as impactful as people make it out to be. Like, he lost all but one in the first battle. Anyway, moving on. As in other Grand Strategy games such as CK2 and EU4, locations in Imperator will have a supply limit shown next to the cauldron and screenshot above. Shown next to the cauldron. Where's the cauldron? Shown its value next to the cauldron. I don't see any cauldron. Oh, maybe it's on here. This one here. Next to the cauldron. Okay, so this supply limit is 11.25. I think that's a cauldron. Yeah, it's a cauldron. Fair enough. Right there. Which is the size of the army that the land can support without suffering attrition. Weather and hostile terrain can also directly increase to attrition in present armies. An army in a desert city, right, so desert province, will always suffer 1% attrition from it. So even if you have, say you're in a desert province, desert city, with 11.25 supply, even if you have only 8 troops, you're still going to be suffering 1% attrition because it's a desert and you don't want to be there. Fair enough. Base attrition is shown by a skull in the province interface above. Fair enough. Together with mountain passes, roads, and other features of the map, this means that you will have to pay closer attention to the map when on campaign. Minimum attrition means that an unsafe route might be more punishing than what you're used to. Yeah, I've noticed that in the dev clashes and the previews that they've been streaming, that armies are taking a lot of losses from attrition, like a hell of a lot of losses from attrition. In the Rome campaign, I think it was, Johan hired some mercenaries, like 18,000 mercenaries, and by the time they got where they wanted to be, they were down to 11,000. Like, they were really, really suffering. But anyway, yeah, that's interesting dev diary. I'm very, very happy with change to the combat system. This is precisely what I wanted. Skirmish line, combat line. Love it. Great stuff. Moving on. So, next dev diary, we're looking at trade. So trade is a subject that is integral to this era in many ways. Flow of goods and people over the Mediterranean is the primary reason it was natural for an empire to form around it. This is how this sea could ever conceivably become Mare Nostrum, or our sea to the Romans. An imperator trade is not limited to something you conduct to make money, it also ties to other systems in the game. So, we'll reiterate what we touched upon in the previous dev diaries and trade in Imperator. I think I did a video about that. I assume so. That was on the 16th of July that one was made. Yeah, my first video was in June. So, each city produces one trade good. for instance, grain. Having a trade good present in a province gives a modifier in that entire province. Grain gives population growth. Each of your provinces has a certain number of routes it can use to import goods. Where do you see that on the thing? I assume it's beneath the marble or granite or whatever that is. Each of your province has a certain number of routes it can use to import goods, and each route can be used to bring in one trade good. Having a surplus of a trade good in a province gives a small modifier, but one that stacks for each extra unit of surplus. For each surplus of grain, the province gets plus 0.05 population growth. Alright, so 0.1 for the first and then 0.5 for each one extra. Trade routes can be used to import trade goods, either making them present in province where they're not produced, or to increase the surplus of them, adding to stacking modifier in the province. Right, this part is going to be a little bit iffy. So it's not going to be so much a thing in single player, but in the dev clash, in the first episode of the dev clash, the player in Bohemia, I don't know how you pronounce it, actually was able to trade with Carthage and get some elephants, which allowed him to build elephants in the middle of Germany. And then with those elephants, he wrecked Saxonia. I hope that has been changed since, because I don't think it's really feasible for Bohemia to be able to make elephants in the middle of Germany. Like, I just don't see it as being natural. Maybe the trade range of each country is changed or something since. I hope so. It's not really going to be a problem in single player. The AI will never do that trade. If you're playing as Bohemia and trying to get elephants, the AI is going to say no. But in multiplayer, anything can happen, really, isn't it? So, so increase the surplus and add in the second modifier. All right, exporting a trade good from a province also requires a surplus in that province. Generating a surplus without importing requires. Generating a surplus without importing requires can be done. Okay, it's throwing me off because it's badly written, but whatever. Either if your province has more than one city producing the same trade good, or if it has 15 slaves in one of its cities, each group of 15 slaves will increase the output of a trade good by 1. Aha, so that's how you're going to get surplus. Fair enough. Right, and it's a surplus in the province, which is the area, not in a single city. That's what's throwing me off with this trade good thing, is because they say province and I'm thinking this is a province, but no, this is a city, this is a province. Just need to wrap my head around the new way. So making them present in provinces. Exporting a trade good from a province, so an area, or requires a surplus in the province. So, right, that's why I was getting confused, is because I'm thinking, how are you ever going to get a surplus in a city, in a single area, if each area only produces 1? But it's not, it's the province, it's the whole thing. Why do they have to change it? Why? Anyway, surplus of trade good in your capital province gives a national bonus. Capitals can have more import routes than other provinces. Most notably, they gain more from the rank of your country. Grain gives plus 10% national manpower modifier when a surplus is in the capital. Fair enough. I wonder if that also stacks. Like if you have surplus of plus, if you have 2 grain in your capital, that is a surplus. So would that be 10% national manpower? Or if you had 2 grain as a surplus? What if you have 3 grain? What if you had 12 grain? Is that going to give a bigger national manpower modifier? I would assume probably not, because 10% national manpower is quite a decent increase. Trade good bonuses are dependent on the type of good and they come in a wide variety. This allows you to tailor your provinces, and even more so your country, to your needs and desires by controlling what you produce and where you ship it. Last but not least, each active trade route creates commerce income in your province, which may add up to quite a bit of money if you have many active routes. Alright, so here's the trade goods. They look like they're split up, right? That's fair enough. They divided the trade goods into functional categories to reflect their effects. They didn't have to do this, like it doesn't change anything by having this, but it's nice. It's very nice to see. So strategic goods, are used to recruit certain types of units. Military goods impact the performance of armies. Growth goods are ones that increase the population growth. Also be required to maintain population without starvation. Population goods or trade goods increase the happiness of your pops, more productive and less likely to revolt. Economy and technology, the last category, provides a variety of bonuses to technology, buildings, tax, commerce, loyalty, or civilization level. Lovely. Alright, so papyrus is right here. There's a lot of goods. There's a lot of goods. I like it. Current imports, wine from Troglodytia. Ditica, whatever. Something like that. And now we're talking about the diplomatic range. So yeah, this is where it was weird, because Bohemia, I think, is... You see it on the map? I'm not sure, but it was around here, and they were trading with Carthage. So anything inside the lighter zone is within range. Like, it's strange because Greece here is able to trade with Bastarnia. And I know none of this is actually colonized. But you would imagine, you know, trade wouldn't just go through uncolonized areas to reach them. I think maybe they should have, like... I was about to say maybe they should have like a route to the capital of each country, but then say you're a central Iberian dude, right? You're not going to be able to trade with anyone because you can't get through the lands of your neighbors. But I don't know. Strange. Guess I will have to wait and see about that one. So in order to conduct most diplomatic interactions, except for declaring war, military access, and suing for peace, be limited by diplomatic range. In order to determine if you're within diplomatic range of a country, your max diplo range will be compared to the distance between your capital and theirs. Maximum range is modified primarily by how high your rank is, also modified by inventions. Overlord and subject will always be considered to be within diplomatic range of each other. Alright, powerful and advanced countries will thus be able to form far-reaching diplomacy, while smaller states will be more limited in their immediate area. Alright, so thinking of this. Powerful and advanced countries, say Carthage, will be able to perform far-reaching diplomacy. Actually, let's think this one's Macedon, right? Macedon, let's call this a powerful and advanced country. It cannot reach Iberia. No, let's bring it back again. Macedon can reach Bastarnia. Bastarnia, not a powerful nation. Macedon is. So Macedon can trade with Bastarnia. Will Bastarnia, with a lower diplomatic range, be able to trade with Macedon? Can I, playing as Bastarnia, reach Macedon? I would assume no, so maybe it is going to have to be a one-sided affair. I'm not sure. There's a lot of questions this is raising, and I'm very excited to dive in and have those questions answered. So, now exports. We only touched briefly on export in the previous dev diary on trade, and what we did mention has changed. There are no longer any general trade access treaties. Rather than making you sign one deal to get access to all the trade goods of a country, you'll now be able to ask for any country within Diplo range to be allowed to import something that they have a surplus of. Likewise, other countries will be approaching you for the right to import your trade goods. Why would you agree to export something when there are so many nice benefits from stacking things inside your own country? Well, to start with, there is an economic incentive. The amount of commerce from international trade is much higher than that from internal trade, meaning that exporting can net you much higher income, especially if you do it from somewhere with good modifiers to commerce, such as a province with many high happiness citizens and markets. Secondly, there is a fourth modifier to be had for exporting a trade good. For grain, our old example, this would be 5% national manpower. So if you export your grain, you get national manpower as well. So surplus in the capital plus 10% national manpower, then export, that's another 5% national manpower. Interesting. Taken together, this means that export is something quite a bit more lucrative than using your own import routes to move trade goods around your own country, though there will of course be situations where you may prefer not to export a trade good that would benefit a neighbour more than you are comfortable with. Alright, so now we're going on to the British Isles. So southern Britannia. As we move on to territory that is further from the Mediterranean, we're now approaching the land of which we know far less. British Isles were by no means unknown to the ancient world. Most recently, the islands were supposedly visited Visited. 1D. Pythias of Massalia. Of Pythias works, however, very little remains, and we only know them from what others have written about them. Alright, so there's not much known about it, so you're basically having to fill in the blanks as such. So, having a look at the starting countries in the south, we've got Icenia, Trinavantia, Cantiatia, Durotriga, Daemonia. This is the one that ended up forming Britannia in the Dev Clash. Ordovizia, Demetia, Decaanglia, Siluria, Debonia. No, it was Debonia, not Daemonia. Sorry, my apologies. And then Cornovia. Interesting that Cornovia is not in Cornwall, but yeah, it's whatever. I'm not saying that it should be, I'm just saying that it's interesting that this name is so similar to what we now call the area. Anyway, Northern Britannia, Caledonia, and Hibernia. So, there are scant sources for the region. The north is only partially subdued by Rome, and so we have even less to go on. The southern part of this region is home to the strongest of the Britannia states, while in the far north, Caledonia has a number of resilient Pictish kingdoms, in between some unowned but populated stretch of land. As in the south, the region has seen a rise of societies around strong hill forts, home to a number of growing cities in the lowlands and northern England. So, if you are unaware, I am actually from England. So one of the things I plan on doing is playing in England when the game comes out, obviously. And I'm going to play the nation where I'm actually from. So this river here is called the River Tees. And I'm from Middlesbrough, which is on the River Tees. So it looks like I'm going to be playing Britannia first. And having a quick read of Britannia, the largest tribal kingdom in Britain, and at the start, also the strongest. So yes, I will be playing the strongest British tribe, but there is a reason for it, because it's my tribe. Yeah, so that's what I'm planning on doing. So we've also got Parisia, Parvethia, Votadinia, Daemonia, Texalia, Caledonia, and Ulatia. So, I said there was going to be 3 Dev Diaries. However, we've been going for 27 minutes now, and I'm actually just going to cut this one short, and we're going to do some more Dev Diaries tomorrow. So I want to thank you all very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this. I certainly have. I think that the changes that I've read today, I'm in favor of. The things that I'm confused about, mostly trade related, I'm interested to find out, you know, hands-on how it works. It's intriguing rather than, you know, bad confusion. I like it. And yeah, we looked at Britain, and I'm going to play in Britain because I'm from Britain. It's great. All good stuff. So thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to click the like button. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye for now.